Hello and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really provocative argument about the history and future of Black economic empowerment. Based on our source material, we're going to explore a perspective that, frankly, challenges a lot of mainstream narratives and pushes for a totally different path forward, one that's all about mindset over policy. So, to get started, let's jump right into a piece of history that might sound a little jarring today. It's about a partnership that really messes with our modern political assumptions. Yep, that was Reverend Jesse Jackson, a giant of the civil rights movement. Now get this, the year was 1999, he was at an event for his Rainbow Push Coalition's Wall Street project, and the person he was introducing and, well, praising, was a man we now know as the 45th president, Donald Trump. And this right here really gets to the core of the source's first big point. You see this wild contrast, right? The whole argument being made in our source material is that this perception of Trump as inherently racist didn't really pop up until much later, specifically when he decided to run for president as a Republican. This earlier, much warmer relationship is held up as, Exhibit A for that claim. And listen, this wasn't just a photo op or a few nice words. This partnership was real. Trump actually gave Jackson's organization free office space in a pretty incredible building, 40 Wall Street. The source points to this specific action as something that, well, it kind of complicates the simple stories we often hear today, doesn't it? Okay, so this whole idea of a different path for economic success, it leads us straight to what our source material holds up as maybe the ultimate model: the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You probably know it as Black Wall Street. And this is the big question the source wants us to wrestle with. It's a direct challenge to a narrative we hear a lot. It's basically asking us to see Greenwood as more than just a tragedy, which it absolutely was, but also as a blueprint for what's possible, a blueprint for success built right in the middle of some of the worst hostility imaginable. So here's how it happened. This is the blueprint. According to the source, Greenwood didn't just happen by accident. No way. It was a strategy, a plan led by a man named O.W. Gurley. Think about this. He buys up the land, and then he basically curates a community, handpicking disciplined, business-minded people to sell to. And from that, this incredible, completely self-sufficient economic world just springs to life. And that brings us to the most crucial point, at least according to the source. It all came down to mindset. It was this philosophy of just radical self-reliance. We're talking about the height of Jim Crow, unbelievable racism, and yet they chose to build for themselves. They created their own wealth without asking for permission or a handout or anything from the outside world. All right, let's fast forward a bit to another major moment in history, because this is where the source's argument about a huge shift in focus really starts to take shape. Take a look at that number, $33,000. In today's money, that's how much economic power the Black community in Montgomery flexed every single day during the bus boycott. That's how much money the city's bus system was losing day in and day out. And they kept this up for 13 months. For over a year, they showed off this incredible economic muscle. And they didn't just stop riding the buses. No, they built their own thing, a brand new independent transportation network, kind of like the first Uber. And the key thing here, all that money stayed within the community. They were proving in real time that they could not only survive, but actually thrive without relying on the city system. But here's the twist. After demonstrating this incredible economic power, the source argues something fundamental changed, a critical turning point. The entire focus of the movement shifted. And this quote, wow, it's provocative for sure, but it really captures the core of the source's critique. The argument is that after the boycott, the main goal stopped being about building economic independence and started being about social integration. From this point of view, that incredible economic power they had just flexed was kind of left behind. It was traded for a victory that, was symbolically huge, but wasn't, in their view, about building actual wealth. So, this whole idea that the focus moved away from economic self-sufficiency becomes the lens our source material uses to look at a really hot-button issue today: the debate over reparations. Okay, so looking at this, the source lays out a three-part argument against government reparations. First, the claim is that the trillions, with a T, spent on war on poverty programs since the 60s are basically payment that's already been made. Second, the observation is that for the most part, the communities these programs were supposed to help are actually worse off. And third, it offers a totally different idea of what reparations could be. The source says, true reparations happen when you build something, when you become an entrepreneur and create a good or service so valuable that other people from any background are lining up to pay you for it. Which brings us to the final part of the argument. Because ultimately, what the source is saying is that the biggest thing standing in the way of another Black Wall Street, it isn't policy, it's not politics, it's not even an external system, it's psychology. It's a battle of mindsets. And the source gives this opposing mindset a pretty controversial name, victimology. It's described as a kind of mind virus for the modern age. And from this specific viewpoint, it's a way of thinking where it actually pays more, socially and psychologically, to focus on how you're a victim than to put in the incredibly hard work it takes to build and to win. And to try and make this idea more concrete, the source tells this story about a teenager from a super wealthy, super successful family. She has every advantage you can imagine, and yet she apparently decides to write a speech about how she's oppressed. This is presented as a prime example of how this mindset can exist completely separate from a person's actual material life. So this brings it all together. This is the core comparison. The argument here is that Black Wall Street worked not just because of racial solidarity, but because it was built on a foundation of shared values, a deep belief in capitalism, in family, in faith, in self-reliance. The source argues that those exact values are now under assault from different ideologies that praise victimhood, and chip away at the very principles that created so much success in the first place. And so that's the big question the source material leaves us with. Is the main thing holding people back an external system, or is it an internal mindset? It's a really challenging idea, right? It pits two totally different views of the problem against each other, and it asks us to really think about where the real fight for economic empowerment is happening. Thanks for digging into this with us on The Explainer.